Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. So glad you could join me. Hope you're, reflecting on a great season. Great being relative. Just got off the phone with a good friend who was lucky enough to finally be able to pick up a gun again. So count your blessings out there, no matter how your season went and how you evaluate it. If you're listening, that means you're alive and kicking, and that's all that matters now. Okay, well, we got a lot to cover this week. Shooting 101 and beyond, one of the hottest topics in my recent Upland Nation Index survey. So we'll be getting some instruction from a master gun fitter, master shooter, master gun expert of all sorts. Brian Bilinski from Fieldsport Limited will be with us very soon. In the meanwhile, your hunting reports, my weekend. We'll take a look at the poll from the last e-newsletter on how many took a new hunter into the field this year. Our Handle It segment this week. I answer a listener question on steady to wing shot and fall. How come? And then our public access tip this week. We're sussing out Wisconsin with a new online tool. It's all coming up on the Upland Nation podcast. How was your weekend? Mine was a little different. Didn't get to travel anywhere, but that's because I was scoring points, I hope, to enable me to finish the season in Nevada. They run until the end of February, the end of the first weekend in February. Wow, wouldn't that be great? So getting ready for that, and by the time you hear this, you will know that, and I'll have a debrief for you on that coming up real soon. But I did get out and start using the precious few target loads I have, making a promise to you. Remember that starting this Memorial Day weekend, I'm going to shoot 100 rounds a week for the entire summer. Hopefully get dialed in on the new old instinctive shooting style that I learned so well way back in the day and am trying to acquire again for a whole bunch of reasons. I won't bore you with those right now, but it is apropos because we are going to be shooting, so to speak, with our guest later on in the podcast. First, your weekend. Well, I'm looking at a great picture of Kelsey. Thanks, Rodney Ott, for sending that along. Looking good out there, on point, 12 o'clock tail, yes, and he says, Kelsey. I sure do, and I miss you both, my friends. Glad you're having what looks like a great ending to the season. Tony Arneson, I don't know where you're finding all your ammo, but tell me because I need some. A lot of geese on the ground there and a lot of camo clothing and other things. Mark Silcox, good to see you, at least on Facebook. Gosh, we're just across town. Worked his butt off and got himself a bird or two. It looks like a beautiful, I remember your dog. Yeah, sure. Last time we were out here for a training session. Good looking dog in just the right size. Fuzzy faced, of course. Chris Wright says, I should have had my limit, but I was having an off day as far as shooting goes. Hey, Chris, I feel your pain. And Darren Timberlake, like so many of us, says, isn't it always after an unproductive hunt that you see 4 to 5 roosters in a cut cornfield as you're leaving? Yeah, it looks like, it's a video. I'm watching it as we're talking here. And it looks like you're pacing that one bird. Don't let me see the muzzle coming out of the driver's side window there. But that is so, there he goes, up into the air. You guys get over to the Wing Shooting USA Facebook page and watch that. He says, I'll see you in the fall, boys. And that's a heck of a way to look at the end of the season. Kevin McLaughlin had a good ending to a week-long trip. It looks like it. A couple of youngsters in the picture along with a few birds and a whole bunch of other stuff out there. I am so happy for all of you, and extra points to everybody who took a newcomer hunting. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. But first off, let me tell you a little bit about our upcoming guest, because he is one of those guys who everybody goes to when they need help with these things: fitting a gun, buying a gun, learning how to shoot that gun, appraisals on guns they want to buy or sell. It all happens with Brian Bilinski, 30 years in the business. Fieldsportltd.com is where you learn more about him. And now let's learn more about him in person. Yeah, so here we are. Without further ado, Brian Bilinski is on the line with me. Brian, I've already lauded your business, your background to a great degree, what you do at Field Sport Limited, but tell us about yourself.
Oh, my. Well, I'm almost 65 years old, and I've been doing this for 40-plus years.
So you figured it out?
Every day is a challenge, but I love what I do. I've been in the wing shooting sports and, have enjoyed every second of it. I kind of trace all my beginnings back to a black Labrador retriever named Rum Village, Indiana Buck, that I bought when I was just coming out of high school, and that Labrador took me down a path that now I'm on Labrador number 9.
Wow.
And so it's been quite a journey with all those dogs. I love them all, and they all have, thankfully, have loved me too. So that, just a quick synopsis, born and raised in South Bend, Indiana. Went to St. Joe High School, Ball State University, and kind of the first job I got right out of college was in the sporting goods industry. I've got a degree in natural resources, but instead of going in that direction, I kind of went into the sporting goods world, and I just love fine guns right out of the box. In fact, coming out of college, I just was smitten with shotguns, and I don't know how the flame was really lit, but I convinced my mom to help me get a loan out of the credit union in South Bend, bought a collection of 32 Model 12s, and away I went.
Wow.
And right out of college, I started taking those guns on the gun show circuit with a few, guys who knew the ropes, and I had a baby face, still do, and when you have 32 Model 12s on your tables at gun shows, you learn a lot real quick about the gun business.
Oh, I can only imagine. Number one, the way you got into this world is the way I got into this world. It was I blame it on the dog.
Yeah.
But you wonder, and I'm just a cynic enough to wonder if you'd ever get a credit union loan to buy a whole bunch of guns today.
Well, my mom worked there. See, that's the key. An inside deal.
Yeah, well, good for you. And granted, I've relied on credit unions for a lot of things over the years, so you never know if anybody's going to do it. It'll probably be them. What is the thing that gets you most excited about the world going into your 40 years now? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
The people I deal with. I think wing shooters and folks that upland bird hunt and waterfowl hunt, I have met some of the finest people in the world through this business. And, I always kind of introduce my website off of dear friends and, valued customers, because they become more friends. I've got, I don't even want to grab a number, but I'll throw one at you. Probably done 10,000 gun fittings in my lifetime.
Wow.
I've got, 4 filing cabinets full. And a lot of those people, I hear from them, yearly, future phone calls. We all are birds of a feather. Bird hunters who, traverse the fields of South Dakota and northern Michigan and, the uplands of Indiana. We all share a common denominator. So it's the people, it's the reward of working with folks. The biggest kick I get out of is seeing a beginner hit his first hit her or his first clay target in instruction. Helping a seasoned wing shooter with improvement to their gun fit, and all of a sudden the skies open up. Diagnosing someone with having cross dominancy. I had a gentleman who flew in from Phoenix this last Saturday for a fitting. Fine gent, two peas in a pod. We were just best friends before we knew it. And, he turns out to be cross-dominant and didn't know it. He thought he was always right-eye dominant, kind of made up for it by squinting his left eye. And when you see their eyes light up and the fact that you kind of add something to their journey as a wing shooter, all rewarded, all reward.
I'll never forget when I was diagnosed with cross dominance. First thing I did was want to slap the guy because I've never worn women's clothing, but but
it comes real close, doesn't it? You got to be careful what you say there.
When I found out what it really was, it did. I hate to say it this way because we're talking about play, but it changed my life. And I'm sure that guy was the same way. It was as if his entire world had opened up again, didn't it?
Yeah, he just started to really. He said there are times I think to close my left eye because the rifleman background, etc. Times that he wouldn't, wonder why he hit, why he missed, and it just all of a sudden it's like, the sky opens up and it's like this is an answer. And then, a lot of folks say, well, can I squint or close an eye? I said, well, I don't really recommend that because it turns you back into an aimer. You don't aim a shotgun, you point it. So then I go into the encouragement of either using a magic dot or a shot spot or off eye on their, opposing eye. Even, in a pinch, you use chapstick or a piece of Scotch tape. But all the above helps that person all of a sudden shoot to their dominant eye off of their dominant shoulder.
Well, that's a big thing around here. I've promised for the last couple of weeks to go back to the instinctive style that really got me shooting very well. I won't go into the details, but as a cross-dominant instinctive shooter, I've done all of those things you describe, and I have come full circle in this reiteration of that whole learning process to where I am closing my left eye, but only at the last minute and only for a second or two as I flip off the safety and pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's very hard, but it's working so far. So cross my fingers. Hey, I got a couple. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, well, this cross-dominancy thing, I've written 2 articles about it, and I write for the Upland Almanac. And I see more men and women, but mostly men that are cross-dominant and didn't know they were, didn't realize that it happened. And I don't know if, I'm dredging up the old information, but the bottom line, I think this is all happening because I didn't see this in the early 80s when I first started teaching, but recently I've seen it beyond word. 6 out of 6 guys in a shooting school, cross-dominant. Wow. I think the reason today is the use of computers.
How take that one step further, because I don't want to get started down that rabbit hole, but what does a computer do that would cause more cross dominance?
You're using both eyes at a close distance, basically 8 hours a day. So what? And I may get corrected by some doctor someday, but I think the muscles in the opposite eye are working at the same strength as the dominant eye. And eventually it catches up with you. That other eye gets stronger and stronger and stronger because you're looking at, 18 inches from our nose, 8 hours a day, start adding up the years, and that other eye keeps getting stronger, and then bingo, unbeknownst to the wing shooter that's had it affect him, he goes central vision.
Yeah.
So now both eyes, consequently he lines up the muzzle of his shotgun on the bridge of his nose, and he's shooting 16 inches to the left of a target of 16 yards.
Central vision, it's as bad as cross dominance.
Well, I think the one that, the guy was, I used to be right-eye dominant. After I check him, I see, he ain't no more.
Yeah, wow.
And it's been a shift. And then you add the other one, you and I chatted about a second ago, you add some aging in there, and, it happens. It happens, and cataracts can be another reason it happens. There's a few good reasons that it's occurring, but unless you have it identified and get it fixed, you're not shooting where you're looking.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because that's exactly right, and that's why I am where I am. Again, relearning this style for what it's worth, and you know, I'll need all the help I can get. And half of the stuff I'm going to ask you about today is selfish, but I admit it right now. But
Yeah,
I
fire
actually
away.
have two really important questions for you. First off, where am I going to find some 20 gauge target ammo?
Whew. Well, I believe it or not, I got confirmation I might be getting some in, uh, and I've got working on getting a pallet. Maybe some is freeing up.
Wow,
Uh,
that would be helpful.
yeah, yeah. I don't have. I have some. I have hunting loads, but no target loads, and we've been out of them here at Field Sport just as long as anybody's been out of them. We don't know what happens. Whether all the manufacturers geared up for 9 millimeter and 223 during the craze, but it'll just. I say if anything, let's just have a little patience and faith that shotgun ammo will again be available. Like it used the good old days, which is what 6 months ago.
Yeah.
What does this relate back to? The fact that we don't have a manufacturer of lead or maker of lead in the U.S. anymore.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up as well, and you know I haven't confirmed that, but the two people who told me that are reliable and would have some inside information about that sort of thing. We're relying on other countries to provide us with the most basic source of not only our ammo, but probably to a great degree the ammo that every single law enforcement and military branch requires to defend this country.
Correct.
It's kind of chilling, and
it's scary. It's scary, no doubt. And I've heard the same things. I hope it's not true, and but the facts are the facts. We're not getting shotgun shells are not on the market. Even 12 gauge target loads are. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that what I got confirmation from a distributor will come true, that we'll finally start getting a few shells again.
Well, good luck on
We'll
that.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. So the other really important question, by the way, when I was perusing fieldsportltd.com, what the hell is the trash can lid award?
It is a hoot. It's bigger than the ESPYs.
Oh,
I mean, this is the award of awards. All right.
And it sounds like one I might qualify for.
Well, it's been done. Well, let's go back. It started maybe about 15 years ago, and a lovely lady was sitting in our classroom, and she was shooting a high incoming target that was coming over her head, and finally, she struggled with a little bit. Blah blah blah. Got to the end of the school, and I went up and put in front of her, in front of her her seat. I said, Patty, that's what you were shooting at. She goes, what? I said, yeah, that's a MIDI. That's a MIDI target. So it goes faster, it looks higher, and it is, it looks more distant because it's a 90 millimeter rather than a 110. And she gives me this dirty look. I said, what were you expecting? What did I do wrong? She goes, I want them as big as trash can lids. And that started it. So the president of Cedar Rod and Gun Club, Tim Stein, God love him, he helps me with the schools. He spray paints a trash can lid, literally. And then the reason that then became the award was Tim kind of sits in the background, watches the whole school go on. And at the end, I say, okay, I'm turning this over to Tim. He chooses who the most improved, the Spirit Award, whatever you want to say, to the shooter in the school, and that's who gets that.
I love it.
So it's a lot of fun.
Well, and that's a great segue to this whole idea. I understand that I was a teacher. I understand taking people from where they are to where you want them to be, and seeing like you said, the light bulb go off over their head and all of that. Let's go into the field though, and let's just create some more common ground here. When you're out in the field working, hunting, not working, hunting. What is it? What do you like most about all of that?
I feel alive again. For a moment of time, you get away from all the pressures of the day, and the cold air hits your face. And in fact, I was thinking about that. I took my current lab, a 6-year-old female yellow pointing lab, is named Daisy. I took Daisy for a walk, and I just felt alive. And I thought back of what I was was going on in my head, and I remembered the book by Gene Hill, A Listening Walk, where you go back, all of a sudden you absorb back in, and life today is so complex, and like I said, we're living on computers and social media, and everything just is hitting us faster than our brains can compute. When you step it back into nature, it's like everything just disappears. You follow your bird dog. You're out. I love to be walking the CRP fields of South Dakota or aspen coverts of northern Michigan, and you get back to what it means to be a human being.
Very primordial. The whole connection between a hunting dog and a hunting human goes back to caveman times or before that. And right. it does kind of bring, back in the 80s, we'd say it would center you, now there's probably a better term for it or another term for it, but you do distill life down to its essence, I guess, is how I would describe it. Yeah.
Amen. Well, I kind of learned that Ball State, one of my, natural resource, I had a class in outdoor recreation. And I connected the dot of something I remember from that to what Fieldsport. Many employees over the 25 years, I say, don't forget, we don't really sell a product. Mm-hmm. We're not selling a pair of brush pants or a fine shotgun or, a pair of good gloves. I said, what we really are selling is recreation. And recreation means you're refreshed when you're done.
You just hit it on the head. If everybody would think that way about what their real product is, and I'll never forget back in after being a teacher, my first career after that was consulting in the world of media relations and that sort of thing. And I had a client who they sold seeds, garden seeds, grass seed, etc. And even back then, Fred Trullinger, I hope you're still alive, and I appreciate this lesson. I said, we got to that discussion, and I was talking about seeds and fertilizer. He says, no, we don't sell any of that stuff. We sell beauty.
Wow.
And
that's strong.
That's what flower seeds ultimately make. So anyway.
Great. Recreation is refreshed.
Yeah.
And if you're not refreshed after a day in the uplands or a day on the duck marshes, you're doing something wrong.
You got to go to the gym more so that you are.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to your business, your recreation business, because there's, I rattled off before you came on the line with me. I rattled off all the things you guys do. It probably rotates depending on the time of year and that sort of thing. But what do you find you Brian spending most of your time doing at Fieldsport Limited?
Well, as far as just job descriptions, besides managing the business and signing checks and reviewing profit and loss statements and balance sheets and all that, and trying to keep your head above water when you're trying to pay bills. Biggest share of my, what I do day in and day out is I do services. I do gun fittings, private shooting lessons, wing shooting schools, firearm appraisals, and then other than that, you're always, as I always comically say to my staff, I just remember this, nothing happens till somebody sells something.
Yes.
So, you've got to make the sale, and we don't find we have to hard sell. Most of the time, guys that are buying a gun or something, they're so in tune now. They kind of know what they want. You just have to help them get what they want.
Yeah, and
So,
especially a fine gun. You know, I had a friend who used to sell $1 million recreational vehicles. And he said everybody who comes in here already has decided to spend their million, and they're really happy about it. Do you see the same attitude when people come in to buy a new gun?
amen. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what the price point is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's the vehicle that takes us into the uplands and the waterfowl marshes and such. You know, we could have our dog, but you're not going to go hunting just to let your dog point a bird unless you got a shotgun in your hands.
Now we're getting into philosophy and Jose Ortega y Gasset, which I will have to quote somewhere down the road. Um, let's talk about the first item because I think we will get some enlightenment here. How important is gun fit to our ability to actually knock something out of the sky?
Well, in my business is huge.
Yeah.
It defies description. When our country is not a nation of bespoke anything. If you and I were in England right now and we were, let's say we walked into Holland's or Purdy's, and finally they sized you up as being a customer, the next thing they're going to ask you is, "Sir, have you had a fitting?" And if you haven't, they're going to send a car for you, and they're going to whisk you down to a shooting grounds, and 3 hours later, you're going to come back with a piece of paper. Now you've been fitted. Okay, that's not America. And we followed, the gun business in America followed Henry Ford. You could have any colored Model T as long as it was black.
Yeah.
So what is, what the gun manufacturers who have to put, thousands and thousands of guns on the racks all around the country are searching for Mr. or Mrs. Average. I've been doing gun fittings for 40 years. I know Mr. or Mrs. Average is out there. I just never met them.
There aren't near as many average people as we think, are there?
No, well, there are guys that get lucky, and I call them that. I said, "Man, you're Mr. Lucky. You're 1 7/8 at face, 14-inch length of pole, no cast." I said, "Enjoy your life. You don't have to be." I don't see those people very often.
Yeah.
I usually see the guy. Well, the gentleman who came in, Andy, who came in from Phoenix, 6'7", 250.
Yeah.
Okay. There you have it.
Good
the
luck.
American, right? And he was going to custom order some guns, and he said, they won't take it without my measurements. I said, okay, come on in, and consequently, so you look at the diverse of people. And again, if I try to always explain it, I say, well, okay, you go into Fieldsport, and you look at the guns that are on the rack. And each one of them is measured down to the 16th of an inch, et cetera, et cetera. And you pick it up and you mount it, and then most people do the same thing. Most shooters do the same thing. They look at the bead and they chortle out, "Ooh, this fits me."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Yeah." And the magic thing was they looked at the bead. I said, with all due respect, that has nothing to do with gun fit. All that is you're self-fitting. You're acknowledging something that you don't want to acknowledge because that's not what makes a gun fitted to you. I always summarize gun fits down to 2 words: anchor point. The anchor point under your cheekbone, your zygomatic arch, is what, as a gun fitter, I'm working from to achieve ideal drop-it face and cast-it face, obviously relative to length of pull. So we're not a nation of bespoke anything. Mr. or Mrs. Average, the guns are made for, and either you get real lucky or you're unlucky. And if you can shoot a certain gun well, God love you, go for it.
But
I usually see the other guys. There is a Mr. Average. If I've done 10,000 gun fittings, the Mr. Average usually falls into 1 7/8 to 2 inches drop at face. More guys fall into that, and that's just kind of the male skull. And more women kind of are between 1 1/2 to 1 3/8, 1 1/4 at face, higher because women have higher cheekbones. I'm sorry, I may have got off the subject. I think I was talking about gun fit.
That's okay, and it's all good for us. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Brian Bilinski, gun fitter, shooter, teacher extraordinaire. His outfit is called Fieldsport. Traverse City, Michigan, one of my favorite places to visit. It seems like every time I go there, it's winter, though. And the website, fieldsportltd.com. Now, you rattled off a bunch of terms, and most of us are not going to remember them, but when we do, why don't you define some of those? Drop it. I think you said drop it face, which is a new one on me. I think I get it, but why don't we go from the top lever on back and explain the key gun fitting terms?
Well, the key to measuring a gun is called the drop gauge, and it's a extension of the reach of the gun from the rib right out over the standing breech out to the end of the stock.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a straight edge, okay? And I have one that clamps down solid. That then allows us to properly measure the key points of the stock in general. Your highest point, drop it comb. That's way up at the peak.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go way to the back, at the end of the stock. That's called the drop it heel. The key to me as a gun fitter is the drop it face, which is halfway between those 2 points. So if you have a 9-inch comb, 4.5 inches back is the drop it face. Drop it face and cast it face makes the rear sight. That's the anchor point that is the rear sight. The rest of it, when a gun fitter's working with you on comb and heel, it's to give you the proper fulcrum between those 2 points, so you have a nice smooth comb that slides under your cheekbone, high enough in the shoulder pocket, low enough at the comb nose so you don't get bit by the stock. So those are the major 3 dimensions: the drop it comb, the drop it face, the center, and the drop it heel. And then those correspond to the cast too. And the cast is the bending of the stock to the right or the left to allow the eye to center properly over the center line of the rib. Cast off is a measurement that most right-handed shooters respond to. Cast on is the measurement most left-handed shooters respond to.
So
everybody, go ahead.
Well, so if we're shooting right-handed, and cast off is basically the stock is going to bend a little bit to the right, away from your face, if you will. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Off, away. All right.
Yeah,
for most
off,
of
away,
us.
Yeah, well, and on is away from a left-handed shooter's face.
Okay. So length of pull is the other term that a lot of gun fitters use, or we can find in most gun catalogs. How important is that?
Oh, extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no 2 people are alike in that regard. The world of, sadly, what's happened in our clay target games is we've become a discipline of pre-mount.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a pre-mounted gun, you can get away with murder with a pre-mounted gun. You are not going to be, and it doesn't have to fit you well, because you can adjust your eye to get it where you want, go back to a hold point, call pull for the target, and move your gun along the line and pull the trigger. You're never going to get away with that in the uplands. You're going to be on autopilot, move, mount, and shoot in an upland situation. So the length of pull, though, that everyone kind of looks, well, you think 6'7" versus 5'2". Yeah, there should be a difference to what a man or woman would need based on their height. But the number one factor that I've seen, this is where my 40 years of doing this has shown up loud and clear to me, is that a man's neck extension dictates length of pull more so than anything else. Where his face sets in. If a guy's got a neck like a giraffe, he's going to shoot a fairly longer stock. He's got a neck like me that is like a turtle, doesn't move a bit, shorter length of pull.
Can you dispel the notion once and forever, old wives' tale, myth, whatever you want to call it? Go to the gun store, you put the butt of that gun in the crook of your elbow, and then you stick your finger in the trigger guard, and if it fits right, that gun is perfect for you.
Yeah, that's the biggest lie of gun fit there ever was.
Probably sells a lot of guns, though.
It does. Oh, you should hear some of the things I've seen where I said, well, someone would tell me, well, I was told by the gun shop I bought this from, this gun fits me. And I said, it was this is a true story. The lady said, I said, well, and I'm back, my head is spinning. This is one of the worst fits I've ever seen of anybody have. And I said, well, how did they determine your fitting? Did they take you out and shoot live ammo? Did they? No, the salesman put it in my hand and says, how's that feel to you, ma'am? She said, feels good. He said, it fits you then. Unbelievable. It's like, oh, my Lord, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
But, yeah, length of pull, I don't where that started. I've seen those old books, too. It's not even a good rule of thumb. It really isn't. There's, you could move your elbow up and down and change that, but where there's two major anchor points, and the one that to your face is what makes your eye alignment perfect. But you do have an anchor point in your shoulder pocket too, and so as a gun fitter, we're trying to eliminate negative gun movement. And negative would be pulling your gun back into your shoulder pocket to get everything seated correctly. So we want the proper length of pull, so you kind of slide the gun up along your clothing. It anchors under your cheekbone, and very little movement of the gun back into the shoulder pocket. So, and that's where this tool called a tri-gun comes in. This is, fitting someone for a gun is a journey. It's trial and error. It's looking. It's observing. It's watching a person go through the process of mounting. And everyone asked me, well, how long does a fitting take? I said, I really don't know. Because I don't know your skill level. If you've got a high skill level, it won't take you too long to be fitted, maybe a couple hours. If you've got a poor beginner level skill level, it may take 4 hours to get you to the point where there's some mechanical consistency to what you're doing to really help you achieve, an ideal gun fit.
And tri-gun is a term we see periodically. Some of us deeper into this world understand what they are. But in a nutshell, Brian, describe what a tri-gun is.
Well, kind of the word means you can try till you get it right. And that's somewhat what happens with a tri-gun. I have 5 of them, and they are either side-by-sides or over-and-unders, and they are live-fire guns, but they have devices fitted to them that allow everything on the gun to be adjustable. There's usually a knuckle, almost like a door jamb knuckle in the. Did I say that right? A hinge, a door hinge in the wrist of the gun that goes up and down, left and right. By adjusting screws, you can move the stock to the left, to the right, up, down, etc. And then there's usually another device on the comb, which is hinged, so the comb comes up and down, so you can adjust that. And then at the back of the stock, there are rods that attach to adjustable butt plates. Like I have a Jones adjustable butt plate on the back, so it can convert the gun into a Monte Carlo, and then it slides out or slides into the stock to change the length of pull. It's a fully articulated live fire gun.
And probably a little bit funny to look at, but that's the whole idea. Hold that thought.
Everything.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Everything from the action is a gun. Everything from the back is a mechanical device to help us fit people with.
That's Brian Bilinski with Fieldsport. They're in Traverse City and online at fieldsportltd.com. I'm Scott Linden. Brian, hold tight for a minute because I've got a couple things to do here, including talk about our Handle It segment. If you've got a dog and you're trying to figure out how to train him up to whatever level you like, we're going to cover that in just a moment. First off, the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Dr. Tim's Performance Dog Food. DRTIMS.com is where you learn all about their various formulations. Something for everybody out there. This time of year, we're trying to kind of rebuild, maybe you are too, but your dog can certainly stand to have a little bit of, nutritive attention, if you will. We're getting them back to their preseason shape because I don't know about you, but every dog I've ever had is skinny and real tired by this time of year. Take a look at some of the high protein and high fat formulations that Dr. Tim has. This is when you can make those kind of strategic decisions that will make your next season and his too. Look at the ingredients, look at their quality, trace them back to their direct sources. It's all on the website, drtims.com. Just got my last delivery yesterday, and a real full 40-pound bag. Some value in there that you might not see in some of those other brands. Don't forget 30% off your first order. Just use the code Upland Nation. And speaking of uplands, hey, you got an e-collar that you decided to upgrade, or are you thinking about maybe a new hunting vest? Take a look at uplandnationdeals.com, both for selling, getting shed of the stuff you're not using anymore, and also for buying gently used pro-level gear at entry-level prices. uplandnationdeals.com. Free shipping on your first sale or purchase. Yeah, so, you get in the public eye a little bit like I am, and everybody wants to ask you a question. Usually they want to ask, when can I go hunting with you? I wish I could take y'all. I really do. But I also love the questions you ask, including one from Dogstar, or Sirius. He says a lot of NAVDA proponents in various bird dog groups advocate for steady to wing shot and fall. Now, he says, other than courtesy and style, why not send your dog for that bird as soon as it flies or as soon as it gets shot at? And why not send two dogs if they're both on that bird? Send them both for the retrieve. Well, my first bit of advice, Dogstar, is read the NAVDA Green Book for more details on all of that and why, because that's the testing process that we use in that group, at least. Several reasons. What if there's more of the covey still holding and your dog races through it and breaks them up? Well, that's bad enough, but what if somebody else in the shooting party is swinging on those broke up birds while your dog is out there looking for the first one you shot at? Okay, safety first, safety second. Third, common courtesy and respect or a reward for the dog that actually made the find versus the honoring dog. Hopefully it was. Let that first dog get the retrieve as a reward. Send two dogs and there's always a chance you might start a dog fight. And finally, it's just kind of cool. I guess I'd leave it at that. Dogstar, I hope I answered your question. We got more to come right here on the Upland Nation podcast, brought to you in part by HappyJackInc.com, HappyJackInc.com, for all your dog care needs. Woof! There you go. Can't even speak straight today, but hopefully Brian Bilinski can. Brian, are you there for me?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
Good. All right. Well, yeah, some of you guys in the Labrador world can probably appreciate some talk about steadiness as well, however you define that. You mentioned your dog about 6 years old. How's she doing these days?
I just well, nobody ever says anything bad about their dog, but I'm tickled pink with the way she points. She's a pointing lab. She's got a great prey drive. And yet she climbs into my lap when we come home. She's found, well, we actually hunted her yesterday, and she did very good. I was very pleased with, how many pheasants we were on a shooting preserve, how many pheasants she found, and yet I don't worry. I mean, if I take a shot, and even if I don't even know I hit it, Daisy comes back with it. I'm really, really pleased with her. I mean, hope most time you hope you got those good hard hits and the bird's down. Sometimes you say, I think I hit that. And then you don't know, and then you let Daisy go out, and boy, I tell you, she did one of those yesterday, and I hear my partner say, she got it. So that's always a joy. As I got a little older, I had Flushing Labs all my life, and then I just got to the point, I said, I love the Labrador. I know him well. As a breed, you just get to be, kind of one or the other. Most guys love, if they're short-haired guys, they love their short hairs. If they're setter guys, they love their setters. And I was just a lab man from, my teens on up. So as I realized my wheels weren't turning quite as quick, I kind of looked into the pointing lab, and I'm tickled pink.
Oh, glad to hear that. And you're absolutely right. Depending on, there's a lot of reasons for having either one. Absolutely.
Amen.
And they're all, there's no bad dogs, as Barbara Woodhouse used to say.
Well said.
Let's get back to shooting and hunting, because there are a lot of things that, we never think about during the season. In fact, I joked about it a while back. I was an okay shooter at the beginning of the season, and now I'm a really bad shooter. Is there some reason for that?
There's usually lots of reasons. I wrote an article on why we miss.
Yeah, you mean a book?
It is. It's a 2 or 3 parter, because you as a shooting instructor, you kind of keep seeing common denominators. Other than the good old classic reason everybody starts to fail in a sport, which is fatigue.
Mm-hmm,
okay, whether you're getting sloppy or such. I'll summarize a couple of things. One is 80% of the misses that I see in our shooting schools are because of bad or incomplete gun mounts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something you can take lightly. You've got to make sure you finish your mount, and we all suffer through, bird up. You take a wild stab at it, and you just don't get that clean finished mount that produces a good clean shot, and usually that means that down dead bird.
Yeah.
So everybody when we were hunting in the snow yesterday, and it was not easy walking. And the number one problem I had was feet. I couldn't move my feet when they're in crunchy snow. The pheasant got up, went behind me. There's no way I was going to get a shot off. It was you've got to be able to move your feet, and one of the first things we talk about in their schools are feet first. The first thing's got to go in the direction the bird's going is your leading foot. Right-handed shooter, that's your left foot. Lots of physical reasons misses occur, but I'm seeing, the eye dominancy thing. You got to, if all of a sudden you're starting to, you better have that checked.
Mm-hmm.
If you gained or lost some weight, it can make a difference to your gun fit. You ought to have that checked. But most bird hunters, myself included, we kind of put away the target guns once bird season opens. You only got so many days to do something, and I'm not going to go target shooting usually when it's the middle of bird season. But you've got to keep your muscle memory sharp, and muscle memory is created by repetition. And repetition is clays. It's whether it's skeet or with gun down, 5-stand with gun down, or sporting clays shooting gun down.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because we don't see a lot of it, but if you're deep into, say, golf, that those tournament golfers are not walking out of their motorhome onto the first tee without stopping at the driving range and the putting green for a little while first. And on off days, they're probably spending significant amounts of time on both those practice sessions. But we tend to have this, misperception that we're born with the skills to shoot stuff.
Sure. Well, there's where something I'll add on that, because that's one of the parts that I bring into our school program. We don't consider ourselves, like we should, athletes. But there isn't any athlete going into any competition that doesn't do what you just said. They warm up. How many times have you seen, your bird hunt buddies, as soon as that dog is out, they grab the gun and off they go, and the first bird gets up right in front of them, bang, bang, miss. We never think to warm up. And warming up is as simple as before pup is let out of the kennel, you stand next to your truck or Suburban and you go through 10, 15 good gun mounts, start some footwork moving, visualizing that you're going to be, what kind of shot you're going to get, but get those muscles warmed up of anchoring that gun under the cheekbone. Then you might be ready for the first bird of the day, but it's too late when you're out there in the field. It's already too late.
Part and parcel to that, and which leads to the next question about patterning, and that is, I'm going to suggest, and you check me because you watch these people with a much more critical eye than I do, and you watch a lot more of them. We tend to rush our shots, which means we rush our gun mount, and then, like you said, all the things that fall into that, from foot position to face position. Is there anything you can help us with that'll get us to slow down just a little on that stuff and be a little bit more deliberate about it?
Absolutely. Breathe.
Ah.
If you can be, who hasn't been all amped up when a dog's on point, but if you can just calm yourself down for a millisecond at a time, take a deep breath, take a lot of air in through get your nostrils wide open, bring that air down into your diaphragm, drop it, let the air out. It's called a cleansing breath. That's how you calm down.
How do you do that when you're not cross-legged with your fingers in little loops? No, but I get it.
Yeah, wish the bird goodbye.
Yes, and chant. So I tell everybody, because for a while there I was lucky enough to be given a whole bunch of Italian guns, and when the guns got here, each of those guns came with the pattern paper they used when they were proofing that gun. Mm-hmm. And patterning a gun has a lot of benefits besides finding out what ammo works, what chokes are right for you, etc., etc. It also shows me how small that pattern is at 16, 20, 25 yards.
Sure.
I used to describe it this way. In the fly fishing world, our friends in Great Britain would, they'd make the cast, they'd watch the fly, the trout would come up and grab that, and then to themselves, if not out loud, they would say, "God save the king." Then they'd set the hook. Can we do anything like that so that the bird gets out there where the pattern is actually open up a little bit?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Pardon the pun. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so many nuances to what you've just said. I'll go back and give myself, another question and comment I hear from a lot of customers. I can't shoot a side by side worth a damn. And I said, "Really, sir?" I said, "Well, let me ask you a couple questions, a few." I said, "Was the gun fitted to you?" No, I never had it fitted to me. It's okay. I said, "Did you pattern each barrel of that gun to see how it looked at the relative distance you would take that bird? If it's a grouse gun, are you testing it at 15 yards, not 40 yards, okay?"
Yeah.
No, I never did that. I never tested the patterns. Then the last question is, did you ever test the barrel regulation of the gun? Meaning, this isn't patterning, this is seeing where the barrels shoot in relative to perfect eye alignment. Is one barrel shooting 4 inches low and 3 inches right, and the other 7 inches high and 4 inches to the left? No, I never did the barrel regulation of my gun either. I said, "Well, sir, 3 strikes, you're out."
Yeah, it's a little bit of work to do all those things, and it requires a little bit of knowledge, but that's where somebody like you comes in. Where else are we going to find help like that if we don't live in Traverse City, Michigan? At the mothership of all sorts of great things, including Fieldsport.
Well, thank you. Gun fitting, it's a journey. Hopefully you can find someone at a local club that can assist you and at least helping you through that. But patterning and barrel regulation tests, that's nothing more than plastic sheets.
Yeah.
And I had a customer ages ago run up to me to show me some patterns he shot out of a Cayman I sold him, and he reached into his pocket and then unfolded this plastic patterning sheet that was folded up in his coat pocket. And I went into shock. I said, "Wait a minute, what is this material you're using?" Because we're used to everyone butcher paper and heavy, cardboard and all this stuff that's difficult to, move around or even utilize. And it's not strong either. It doesn't hold up to what you're trying to do usually.
Yeah.
you can buy it at Gordon's Foods. It's a roll about 4 feet long. That probably is 120 feet. 120 feet long, 4 feet wide. It's the material they use to cover tables at weddings.
I'll be darned.
It is the best. I've been using it now for ages. In fact, there was an article that was written in Shooting Sportsman on me doing barrel regulation tests. That's the material you'll see. You can fold it up, send it down to Briley. Here's where the barrel's shot. But that type of material, that'll last most wing shooters 2 lifetimes.
Wow.
I go through like 3 or 4 rolls a year. But there's simple things to do, and they're fun too. It's really eye-opening, and it can save you. I've had a lot of guys up at the steel patterning plate, the fitting plate, and they'll shoot their right barrel at the plate, and it's about the size of a pie plate. And I said, "Is that your grouse gun?" I said, "You realize, an average grouse is shot at about 18 yards, and we're shooting at 16 yards." I said, "That's a very unforgiving pattern. You don't have a lot of margin of error, or if you did hit that grouse, it's a piece of pate."
Yeah, a lot more red in the pate than I care for. But
right, and that's sad. We'd waste a bird just by not testing it. Because I say many times, don't believe anything you see on the barrels. Don't believe the words. Oh, that's an improved cylinder. Well, take a look at it. What's it look like at the relative yardage you're going to use that gun? You know the type of dogs you hunt over and what your average shot is. I'd say my average shots yesterday were 15 to 20 yards. You physically don't need any choke down in that range. You could shoot cylinder all day at 15 to 20 yards.
Well, but you mentioned again, and this is part of that. And I've had some fun with various things. I have a GPS collar on my dog all the time, and I'll try and guess how far away from me he is. I'll put him on a whoa, and then I'll just look at that screen, and he's never as far away as I thought he was. So we need to judge distance as well for ourselves. We need to practice that even when we don't have a pattern board of one sort or another in front of us. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Brian Bilinski. He's got I don't know what to call it beyond a vast array of shooting-oriented merchandise, knowledge, and skills at Fieldsport, and you can learn more about all of that stuff at fieldsportltd.com. Brian, what is, if you had to nail it down to one or two things that you see most often at your shooting school, could you tell us what they are so hopefully we can start working on those?
Well, it's a journey, and the puzzles have to be put together in lots of ways for people. That learning to shoot it's not something that you just go out behind the barn and do by yourself, or with grandpa throwing a clay target for you. I think the folks that come to our schools, they want to learn a technique. And the most common request we have, and I have a questionnaire that they have to fill out, is what's your goal? And everybody about comes through with the same answer. They want to be more consistent. Okay? So consistency comes from having a good method, and I'm very proud of the fact I think we've pieced together the proper terminology and the elements that make you a better shot. We focus in on proper stance, proper posture, starting a gun in a ready position, moving your gun first and harming the target, firm gun mount, hard target focus, and after you pull the trigger, stay in the gun. That's the key elements of a field sport wing shooting school. Stance, posture, ready position, gun moves first and harming the target, firm gun mount, hard target focus, stay in the gun. Then I always have a little fun with it. I always say, okay, what's the most important thing I just said? School is over. And then everyone kind of stammers and stutters with a few answers. And I said, number one, focus. No focus, no bird. And that our sport is built based on that. If you don't focus hard on the bird, nothing else really matters because it is a hand-eye coordination sport.
Yeah.
Eye-hand, hand-eye, whatever you want to call it.
So,
So, I mean, human beings all suffer. We all suffer through the same problems, but learning it is based on two magic words: muscle memory. If you do it over and over and over again correctly, a proper stance, that's what then eventually carries you into the field so you don't hit those real slumps. You're doing everything as well as you possibly can. And when you've got to go autopilot when a bird flushes. There's the 6 inches between your ears has got to go, is shut off, focus and muscle memory come into play.
okay, so take me there. I'm not asking for a free lesson yet, but and you're absolutely right. And this is what got me back to where I am now, which is making significant progress faster. And that is this whole focus question. We've all heard that, focus on the ring on a pheasant's neck, focus on the beak of the bird, focus on their eye. Are you talking about that sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But it's not easy.
No.
Focus is hard work. It doesn't just come, naturally. You got to you got to kind of pre-program yourself. And if you're walking in on a point, that's when you kind of set the stage. Taking that cleansing breath, back to something I said earlier, that you've got to pre-program too when you're shooting clay targets. It to me, it's become as natural as I can. Before I'm ready to call pull, I go through the cleansing breath, and that calms your mind. When I see real good shooters, when shooters are starting to shoot real well, they look very quiet. And that's what really you can start to tell the difference. They're starting to get into that proverbial zone. But it's okay to think when you're practicing, because if you got to think about your stance, that's okay. Do that. If you got to think about your posture and do it, that's okay. If you got to go into your ready position and feel like, that's the correct anchor point for the heel, the stock, etc., you have to think, and some of this stuff goes all the way back to look what it takes for an Olympic athlete to go from, one step to another. If I'm misquoting, it doesn't matter because it takes about 20,000 repetitions to go from where you were to where you want to be in creating better muscle memory. So all those things are good. If you can do 10,000, just think how many 10,000 gun mounts. Well, most of us don't have the time to do that, but even a few hundred over the course of a few weeks at home in the basement when you in your gun room practicing those gun mounts all the way firm to your cheekbone. All those things add up. One of the things too that I have to encourage our shooters to do is you don't want to be a bead looker. Beads on beads on shotguns are the kiss of death. That bird will fly on and that's what, going back to the word focus, the human eye can't focus on two planes at one time. I think way early on I said, you point a shotgun, you don't aim it. I've become so deadly afraid of looking at the bead in my gun. They're all gone. I've taken them off of every gun out. I want to be as conscious of the bird. Subconsciously, you're aware of your gun, and that's where gunfit enters in. You have to have confidence. Once you anchor under your cheekbone, the shot cloud's going where you're looking. You'll still miss birds, but you'll know where you missed with a well-fitted gun. With an ill-fitted gun, you're adjusting and hoping and poking and praying.
In the last 2 weeks, I've hunted with one of each. One who knocked all the beads off and one who put a bigger, brighter bead on. And neither of them shot very well, but they shot better than me. So that tells you where I am.
Yeah.
But,
well, we're all in different journeys and boats as shooters. But, I'm going to encourage folks that, you have to understand. I mean, even when the big pros might be shooting with a real brilliant sight in front, they know how to use it. They look through it. They don't look at it. And so there's relativity to all that.
Amen to that. If you had to, you're sitting there in Fieldsport the office, the nerve center, and if everybody, if somebody can actually get through your scores of screeners who are trying to weed out all the dumb questions, and you finally get one from an acolyte, what are the most, just sitting there on the phone, what do people ask you the most?
Can I get into one of your shooting schools?
Which, by the way, you can at least get on the mailing list and on the wait list, I think, right?
I know, and I'm very blessed. There's a wait list for both the fittings lessons and schools. If we're not, this isn't a big operation where we keep our ratio of student to school small. But wing shooters. Back to try to answer your question logically, it's as broad as the amount of guns on the market you can buy. Everybody has their own special interest or need, and yet, I know from an instructor standpoint, we are all in the same boat as human beings. We all make the similar mistakes, all need similar coaching, and muscle memory is built by repetition for everybody, doing it over and over and over again. But it's just fun, helping, folks. What I typically see is history repeats itself a lot around here.
Mm-hmm.
We try to keep the questions about guns we sell down to bare bones minimum by giving as much information about the gun as physically we can on our tags. When we're measuring chokes, it's down to the thousandths of an inch. None of this is conjecture. It's all factual. Stock dimensions measured into the sixteenths of an inch. Gun weight, less than an ounce. You're always trying to help someone help them get what they want. And as I've written articles about, in search of the perfect shotgun, it's a journey. And when you get one, you just, that's the one you grab when you're going hunting. It's a favorite.
Let's talk a little bit about exactly that, because whether we believe that a new gun will make us a better shooter instantly, or we're just always in search of one because that's kind of what we're about. If we're looking for a gun, and let's focus on previously owned guns for a moment here. A great gun is a great gun, whether it's been shot 1,000 times or it's right out of the box, just proofed and nothing else. What are the things you look for when you're looking at acquiring a gun?
Well, condition is very important. You're looking for faults that you shouldn't pay for. If you look down the barrels and see pitted barrels, you walk away. Exterior condition, cracks in the stock, things that are difficult to fix, things that are, caveat emptor when it's buying used guns. And, even if you buy a nice used gun, there's no guarantees that something's not wrong. I mean, if you don't think your gunsmith's not your best buddy, buy a used gun, right? Anything can happen. I mean, triggers can malfunction, safeties can malfunction. And, I'm not saying this because I'm a gun dealer, but try to buy from a reputable dealer, but do your best to do your due diligence with that gun before you put your money down. You should be entitled to a 3-day inspection period to take the gun out, and if it's used, to take it and shoot it a little bit. But, back to one of the things you've asked a couple times about, gun fit, ugh.
Yeah.
A lot of gun stores, with all due respect, don't give you anything more than maybe length of pull. Something on a tag. Some tags are just, make, model, serial number, and price. So, and that's why so many guns get bought and traded back in, because, like I said earlier, the guy says, I can't shoot a side-by-side worth a damn. Well, if you just keep you're hoping and poking and praying that that you're going to find the perfect gun by accident, that's expensive. That's an expensive way. So, you can either get real lucky and you're Mr. Average, and the gun you bought by the manufacturer was made for Mr. or Mrs. Average. Now, I'll say something right now about that, which is these manufacturers, and I represent a lot of them, they're changing their stock dimensions almost yearly.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very, I sit and measure every gun that comes and goes through our store, and that's thousands. And it's like, let's pick anybody, a Beretta or a Browning of 5 years ago, the dimensions of that gun were XYZ. Today, they're ABC. And then, what I think happens is it's input that the gun manufacturers get from the public, and they keep hearing the similar complaints, and they make changes. Our combs are too high. Getting too many complaints. Our combs are too low. Too many complaints. Our stocks are too long. Too many complaints are too short. Not enough cast. Too much cast.
Wow.
So somebody tells somebody to go out into the the workshop that runs the CNC machine that kicks out the stocks, and they plug in different dimensions. And it's a never-ending battle. I mean, it's a cycle that never is going to end. They are looking for Mr. Average, and he, like I said earlier, I know he's out there. I just never met him. So, you at least want to buy with an educated eye toward a gun that at least you can do certain things. If it doesn't fit you well, you can make it better fit you. You're probably not going to put an adjustable comb on a beautiful side-by-side, but I wouldn't hesitate to put it on an over and under target gun. So those are all the nuances, pro or con.
Well, that's enlightening in and of itself, so if you really love Grandpa's shotgun and you shoot it well, simply going out and buying the same model today doesn't mean it's the same gun.
Oh, amen. That I can guarantee you, by as many thousands of guns I've measured, they're not. And there's been changes of the human, the body type of Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what grandpas looked like back in the 20s and 30s, and even the style and the way they shot compared to today. I'm not kidding you. 6'7", 250 was my client on Saturday. So the guy, I think American shooters in general are getting bigger and taller, and so that changes a lot. But cheekbone height is what dictates drop at face, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully you can get some help in making sure you have that pretty well identified, and good length of pull. A lot of guys are very good at helping people along, but the pre-mounted gun disciplines of trap and skeet have kind of made it easier to shoot a gun well because you can adjust to it. As we upland bird hunters, we don't have that privilege.
No, we'd look pretty silly out there like that, although I've seen it happen.
Yeah. No, nobody I've ever seen is walk pre-mounted 8 hours a day in the uplands of South Dakota.
Let's hope not. If they do, I hope they're in another field than mine.
Amen.
That's Brian Bilinski. You can learn more about his company, Fieldsport, at fieldsportltd.com. We could talk all day, but I think it's happy hour over there, so I'm going to turn you loose. Thank you so much for being a part of the Upland Nation, Brian.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Let's do it again someday.
We will. Okie doke. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Take care.
And the rest of you, we're getting down to it, but we got a lot more to cover here, including, let's start with the weekly emailed newsletter poll that I do. Now that the season is over, or for most of us over, I still got high hopes, but I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of get a feel for something I do ask fairly frequently, and as you know, it's a big deal with me. Did you take a newcomer hunting this season? And I got to tell you, this is just spectacular. Congratulations to 47% of you out there who did. I didn't ask if you took them once, twice, or 100 times, but almost half of you have taken a newcomer hunting this season, and that is incredible. The other half, why not? And we've gotten into that in bits and pieces, but just ponder that. during the off season. Why wouldn't you take a newcomer hunting? All right, enough of a lecture there. Congratulations, everybody. And thank you all for responding. We continue to get more and more readers and more respondents to that survey every week, and that is pretty darn cool. I got more for you. Our public access tip is coming up. This land is your land. But first, the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by gunner.com. Yep, they test them. They destroy them, or at least they try to destroy them, and then they develop all sorts of stuff to put on, in, around, and near their original gunner kennels, from feed bins to fans, covers of one sort or another, to Flick's favorite bed inside his gunner kennel. Learn more and be the first to know about all the exclusive offers. Sign up for their mailing list. It's all available at gunner.com. Okay, I've been given short shrift, I know, to some of you in the upper Midwest, and we're going to talk about that right here in This Land is Your Land, brought to you by FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. New material every week to help you find places to hunt, as well as some dog training and care tips and a little bit of everything else. FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. You heard about flight? Yeah, I think that's how you're going to have to pronounce it. In Wisconsin, the game department has developed the Field and Forest Lands Interactive Game Bird Hunting Tool. Whew, that's a mouthful. The acronym is just as bad. Flight. Anyway, just Google it, and you'll have access to some great maps, very interactive, plus a tutorial on how to use all this stuff. The best news is they're helping you get a leg up if you're new to the sport. They'll show you on the map where there's cover suitable for ruffed grouse and woodcock. Are you a mourning dove hunter? They'll show you where those fields are that are open to the public. And they'll also show you the properties that are stocked with pheasants by the DNR. So just Google it, Field and Forest Lands Interactive Game Bird Hunting Tool, and take a look. The Upland Nation is also brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care products. They're crafted at the highest caliber, free shipping all the time, gift cards available, always new stuff. Sign up for their mailing list and you'll be the first to know about all the new stuff, whether it's their gun grease or some of the cleaning tools and devices they have. It boggles my mind that people don't want to take good care of their okay guns. Sage and Breaker makes it a little easier to do. SageandBreaker.com is where you learn more about all the things they are doing. As always, the Upland Nation podcast wouldn't be anything without you listening, telling your friends to listen. I sure appreciate it. And help me out with a subscription, a rating, or a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to thank you for coming and listening and being a part of the Upland Nation podcast. We got lots more going on. Next time around, we're going to talk about how your season went. If you want to be a part of that, please send me a private message on Facebook and we'll get you in the queue. Love talking with you directly. That'll be one way to do it. If you haven't taken a newcomer hunting yet, start laying plans now for next season. If you haven't hugged your dog lately, please do. Keep your friends close and your family closer. If you want to talk between now and next podcast, go to the Upland Nation or the Wing Shooting USA Facebook pages. I'll leave you with this quote from Norman Strung, great old school writer. Appreciate all his work. He says, Labradors are lousy watchdogs. They usually bark when there is a stranger, but it is an expression of unmitigated joy at the chance to meet somebody new. Yeah, Funny, that's how wire hairs are too. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Scott Linden. See you in the field.